Ambassador Zethkar stood before the massive viewing screen of the diplomatic vessel Concordia. The ship stretched for miles in every direction, a floating city designed to impress new species with the power and wisdom of the Galactic Council. Through the transparent metal, he watched a small blue and green planet slowly rotate against the darkness of space. Earth. Home to the humans. Zethkar adjusted his ceremonial robes and reviewed the data pad in his four-fingered hands. His purple skin gleamed under the soft lights of the command deck. After 300 years as a diplomat, he had performed this ritual countless times. First contact was always special, but it had become routine. The humans were young. Their species had only discovered faster-than-light travel a few months ago. Their ships were crude metal boxes that barely managed to punch holes through space. By galactic standards, they were infants taking their first steps into the larger universe. "Sir," called Communications Officer Veltar from her station. "We're receiving multiple transmissions from the planet. Their communication networks are quite active." Zethkar nodded. Most new species went silent when they detected an alien vessel. Fear was normal. The humans seemed to be talking more than usual. "Have you analyzed their languages?" he asked. "Over 6,000 different dialects, sir, but we've identified several major ones. The translation matrix is ready." "Good. Open a channel to their planet. Use the standard greeting protocol." Veltar touched several controls. A soft chime indicated the channel was open. Zethkar straightened and began the speech he had given to thousands of species. His voice was warm and friendly, designed to calm frightened civilizations. "Greetings, people of Earth. I am Ambassador Zethkar of the Galactic Council. Do not be afraid. We come in peace and friendship. Your species has taken its first steps into faster-than-light travel. This is a great achievement. We wish to welcome you into the galactic community." He paused, waiting for the usual response. Most species needed time to process the reality of alien contact. Some begged for mercy. Others asked for proof. A few demanded technology or weapons. All eventually accepted the Council's guidance. The response came within minutes. A clear, calm voice spoke in what the translator identified as English. "Hello, Ambassador Zethkar. We appreciate you stopping by. We're not interested in joining anything right now. We prefer to handle our own affairs. Please have a safe journey." Zethkar blinked all four of his eyes. He looked around the command deck. His crew stared back with equally confused expressions. "I'm sorry," Zethkar said into the communicator. "Perhaps there was a translation error. We are offering membership in the Galactic Council. This provides protection, technology, trade opportunities, and the wisdom of thousands of civilizations. It's quite beneficial." "We understand your offer," came the same calm voice. "Thank you, but no. We're fine on our own." The channel closed. Science Officer Kremtok floated over from his station. His gas-filled body shimmered with disbelief. "Sir, I've never seen this response in the historical records." Zethkar set down his data pad. In 3 centuries of diplomatic work, he had never encountered outright rejection. Species might negotiate terms or ask for time to consider, but none had ever simply said no to Council membership. "Run a deeper scan of their planet," he ordered. "Maybe we missed something about their development level." For the next several hours, the Concordia's sensors examined Earth in detail. The readings were puzzling. Human technology was indeed primitive compared to galactic standards. Their fastest ships could barely reach the nearest star. Their weapons were chemical explosives and basic energy beams. Their cities had no force fields or gravity control, yet something felt wrong. The planet was too organized for a species that had never dealt with aliens. Their communication networks carried massive amounts of data. Their orbital installations were more numerous than expected for such a young civilization. "Try again," Zethkar decided. Perhaps they need more information about the benefits. Veltar opened another channel. This time, Zethkar was more detailed. He explained how the Council maintained peace across the galaxy, how trade networks provided resources that no single world could produce, how technological sharing advanced all species, how military protection defended against hostile forces from outside the galaxy. The human response was identical. Thank you for the detailed explanation. We appreciate the offer, but we're not interested. We wish you well. Zethkar dismissed his staff and retreated to his private quarters. The room was decorated with gifts from grateful species he had welcomed into the Council over the centuries. Crystal sculptures from the Altarians, singing flowers from Vera Prime, memory stones from the collective minds of Theta Centauri. He activated his personal communicator and called Council Central. "Report," said the familiar voice of High Administrator Thaisara. "The humans have refused membership," Zethkar said. Silence stretched across the light years between them. "Explain," Thaisara finally said. "They simply said no. Twice. They claim they prefer independence." "Are you certain the translations were accurate?" "Completely certain. Their meaning was clear." More silence. "This is unprecedented," Thaisara said. "No species has ever rejected Council membership. Are they hostile?" "Not at all. They were polite. They just aren't interested. Perhaps they don't understand the implications of refusal. Species outside Council protection are vulnerable to attack. They have no access to advanced technology, no trade networks, no allies." "I explained all of that. They said they could handle their own affairs." Thaisara's breathing was audible over the communicator. "Maintain position. Send detailed reports on their activities. The Council will decide how to proceed." The connection ended. Zethkar returned to the viewing screen. Earth continued its slow rotation, seemingly unconcerned with the massive alien vessel in its space. Human ships came and went from orbital stations, following their normal routines. He had welcomed species that lived in gas clouds, species that communicated through color changes, species that existed as pure energy. But he had never met a species that simply didn't want what the Council offered. The humans acted like Council membership was optional, like they had a choice. In 300 years of diplomacy, Zethkar thought he understood how the universe worked. Strong species protected weak ones. Advanced civilizations guided primitive ones. The Council maintained order. For the first time, he wondered if he was wrong. High Administrator Thaisara paced across the crystal floor of the Council chamber. Her 8 legs clicked rhythmically as she moved between the floating seats where representatives from across the galaxy waited for her decision. The chamber could hold 10,000 beings when needed. But today, only the core members were present. 3 weeks, she announced to the assembly. Ambassador Zethkar has been attempting contact with the humans for 3 weeks. They continue to refuse all offers of membership. Council member Hive Mind Theta 7 spoke through its collective voice box. "Have we considered that they might not understand the concept of galactic civilization?" "They understand perfectly," Thaisara replied, waving one of her primary arms. "Our linguistic analysis confirms they comprehend every word we say. They simply choose to refuse." Elder Grixton of the Silicon Brotherhood raised his massive stone head. "In my 2,000 years of service to this council, I have never heard of such behavior." "Are we certain they are a rational species?" "Their planet shows clear signs of organized civilization," reported Science Director Quindale from her floating platform. "They have global communication networks, space stations, and colonies on several moons. They are definitely rational." Thaisara stopped pacing. We're going to try a different approach. Send Trade Representative Meklos with a full economic package. Offer them technology exchanges, resource-sharing agreements, and access to the galactic trade networks. Make it clear that these benefits are only available through Council membership. The Assembly murmured agreement. Economic incentives had never failed to convince a species before. Trade Representative Meklos arrived at Earth 3 days later aboard the merchant vessel Golden Exchange. His ship was smaller than the Concordia, but packed with examples of galactic technology. Gravity generators that could lift mountains, energy systems that could power entire planets, medical devices that could extend lifespans by centuries. The humans allowed him to land on their planet at a location they called New York. Meklos was surprised by the crude but impressive structures humans had built. Their cities reached toward the sky with thousands of identical rectangular towers. Primitive, but ambitious. The meeting took place in a simple room with flat walls and basic furniture. 3 humans sat across from Meklos at a plain wooden table. They wore simple clothing and showed no signs of being intimidated by his presence. "We appreciate you coming to visit," said the human who introduced herself as Secretary Chen. "We understand you want to discuss trade opportunities." Meklos activated his holographic display. Images of advanced technology filled the air above the table. "These are just samples of what the galactic trade networks can provide. Faster-than-light communication systems, matter converters that can create any substance, defensive shields that can protect entire star systems." The humans watched politely. They asked technical questions that showed they understood the technology being demonstrated, but their expressions remained neutral. "These are impressive achievements," Secretary Chen said when the display ended. "We're sure they would be very useful to many species." "They could revolutionize your civilization," Meklos emphasized. "End scarcity, eliminate disease. Allow you to travel between stars in days instead of months." "That does sound helpful," Chen agreed. "But we're not interested in joining the Galactic Council to get them." Meklos was confused. "I don't understand. These technologies are only available to Council members. The knowledge is restricted. How else would you acquire them?" The human smiled. "We'll figure things out on our own. We usually do." The meeting ended with the same polite refusal Zethkar had received. Meklos returned to his ship, wondering if the humans were somehow insane. While the council debated what to do next, something unexpected began happening throughout the galaxy. Human ships started appearing in systems far from Earth. They weren't exploring or establishing colonies. They were trading. The first reports came from the Outer Rim territories, where council oversight was lighter. Human merchants offered deals that seemed impossible. They wanted common materials like raw metals and basic chemicals. In exchange, they provided refined goods and simple manufactured items. What made the deals unusual was their terms. Human traders didn't demand exclusive contracts or long-term commitments. They didn't require species to follow council regulations. They simply offered fair exchanges and left when business was complete. Governor Plexnar of the Vegan Mining Collective was the first to contact the council about human trade activities. His communication reached Thisara's office while she was reviewing psychological reports about human behavior. "Administrator," Plexnar's voice crackled through the subspace communicator. "We have a situation. Human traders are offering better prices for our raw materials than the council trade networks provide." Thisara set down her data pad. "Better prices? How is that possible? Council networks are optimized for efficiency across the entire galaxy. I don't know how they do it, but they're paying 30% more for refined metals. And they're not demanding exclusive contracts. They just buy what they need and move on." "Have you accepted their offers?" Plexnar was silent for a moment. "My people need the income, Administrator. These are legitimate transactions." After ending the call, Thisara immediately contacted Economic Director Zulman. Run an analysis on human trade activities. I want to know how they're offering such competitive prices." The report arrived 2 days later. It was disturbing. Human traders were indeed offering better terms than council networks, but they were also operating outside established trade regulations. They didn't require species to meet council environmental standards. They didn't enforce council labor laws. They didn't collect the standard taxes that funded galactic infrastructure. Most concerning was their efficiency. Human ships could apparently travel faster and carry more cargo than anything in the council fleet. Their traders made decisions quickly without consulting distant authorities. "They're undermining the entire system," Zulman explained to the emergency council session. "If other species see that independent trade is more profitable, they might start questioning council membership benefits." This fear proved justified. Within weeks, several council members began asking why their trade agreements included so many restrictions and fees. The Altarian Commerce Guild requested a review of their membership terms. The Centauri Cooperative started sending independent traders to human space. Thaisara realized the situation was becoming dangerous. For 50,000 years, the Council had maintained galactic stability through careful economic and political control. Species accepted Council authority because they believed it was necessary for prosperity and protection. The humans were proving that neither was true. "Send the enforcement fleet," Thaisara finally decided. "Contact the Vrex hegemony. Tell them we have a species that needs to understand the importance of galactic order." The decision was approved unanimously. The Council had never failed to bring a species into compliance. The humans would learn that galactic civilization wasn't optional. It was mandatory. Fleet Commander Vexnall of the Vrex hegemony studied the tactical display showing the human solar system. His massive warship, the Dominator, led a fleet of 300 vessels toward Earth. The Vrex had spent millennia perfecting the art of forced compliance. No species had ever resisted them successfully. "Target analysis complete, Commander," reported Tactical Officer Zargeth from his position at the weapons console. "The humans have approximately 50 ships in their system. All appear to be civilian vessels or primitive military craft." Vexnall's scarred face showed satisfaction. The Vrex were warriors by nature. Their bodies adapted for combat with thick armor plating and natural weapons. Their ships reflected this philosophy, built for overwhelming firepower rather than elegant design. "What about their defensive installations?" Vexnall asked. "Minimal, sir. A few orbital platforms around their homeworld, some scattered outposts on asteroid mining stations. Nothing that could challenge our fleet." The commander activated the communication system. His voice carried the authority of a species that had conquered over 200 worlds for the Council. "Humans of Earth, I am Fleet Commander Vexnall of the Vrex hegemony. You have been operating in violation of galactic law by conducting unauthorized trade and refusing Council membership. You will immediately cease all independent activities and accept Council authority. You have 1 hour to comply." The response came quickly. The same calm voice that had spoken to Ambassador Zethkar weeks earlier. "Commander Vexnall, we have no desire for conflict. We've told your council repeatedly that we prefer to remain independent. Please leave our space peacefully." Vexnall laughed, a sound like grinding metal. "You misunderstand your situation, humans. This is not a negotiation. Your compliance is required. Surrender now, or face the consequences." "We cannot surrender what we have not taken. We choose independence. Please respect that choice." The channel closed. Vexnall turned to his crew. "Begin standard intimidation protocol. Destroy one of their outer mining stations. Show them the price of defiance." The Vrex fleet moved toward a human asteroid mining facility. It was a small installation with perhaps 50 workers. The Dominator's main guns powered up, weapons that could crack a planet's crust. Then something impossible happened. The human ships moved, not toward the approaching fleet, but into positions that made no tactical sense. Some dove toward the local star, others disappeared behind planets. A few seemed to simply vanish into empty space. "Sir," Zargeth called out, confusion in his voice. "The human vessels are scattering, but not in retreat formation. They're taking positions throughout the system." "Afraid to face us directly," Vexnall decided. "Destroy the mining station. They'll understand our power." The Dominator fired. Massive energy beams crossed space toward the asteroid facility, but the beams never reached their target. They struck something invisible and scattered harmlessly into space. "What happened?" Vexnall demanded. "Unknown, sir. Some form of defensive barrier. Our sensors can't identify the source." More impossible things began happening. The human ships that had seemed to flee toward the star suddenly reappeared, moving at speeds that defied known physics. They weren't using conventional engines. They seemed to be riding waves of gravitational force. "Sir, we're detecting massive gravity fluctuations throughout the system. The humans appear to be manipulating local space-time." Vexnall had conquered primitive species before, but none had ever demonstrated technology this advanced. "All ships, attack formation. Destroy any human vessel within range." The Vrex fleet opened fire. 300 warships unleashed enough energy to sterilize a planet. But the human ships seemed to dance between the weapons' fire, moving in impossible directions as if gravity obeyed their will rather than physical law. Then the humans began their response. The ships that had hidden behind planets emerged, but they weren't alone. They brought chunks of planetary matter with them, accelerated to tremendous speeds by controlled gravity fields. Asteroids became kinetic weapons. Moons became guided missiles. The star itself seemed to participate in the attack. Solar radiation focused into beams that cut through Vrex armor like paper. Magnetic fields from the star reached out across millions of miles to disrupt Vrex ship systems. "Impossible," Vexnall whispered, as his tactical display showed Vrex vessels being systematically disabled. "They're using the entire solar system as a weapon." "Commander, we're receiving surrender demands from the humans," Communications Officer Kelvas reported. "Surrender demands? From them?" "Yes, sir. They're asking us to power down our weapons and prepare to be escorted out of their space. They promise no harm will come to our crews if we comply immediately." Vexnall looked at his tactical display. In less than an hour, over half his fleet was disabled. Human ships moved through the battle like predators, striking with precision and overwhelming force. They didn't fight like any species in galactic history. They fought like they had planned for this exact scenario. "How are they doing this?" he demanded of his science officer. "Unknown, sir. Their technology appears to be based on gravitational manipulation on a scale we've never seen. They're not just using artificial gravity fields. They're controlling the fundamental forces that hold the solar system together." Another wave of human ships appeared, seemingly from nowhere. Vexnall realized they had been hiding in plain sight, camouflaged as space debris and inactive satellites. The entire system had been a trap from the moment his fleet arrived. "Sir, we're receiving another communication from the humans." "Put it through." The familiar calm voice spoke again. "Commander Vexnall, you have lost this engagement. Your fleet is disabled, but your crews are safe. We are prepared to escort you back to Council space. We suggest you report to your superiors that humans prefer peaceful independence. Further military action will result in more decisive defensive measures." Vexnall's pride warred with tactical reality. The Vrex had never retreated from battle, but they had also never faced an enemy that could turn an entire star system into a coordinated weapon. "Define more decisive measures," he growled. "We have been gentle with you, Commander. We disabled your ships without harming your crews. Next time, we might choose to disable your crews without harming your ships, or we might visit your homeworld to explain our position more clearly." The threat was delivered in the same calm tone, making it somehow more terrifying than any battle cry. Vexnall made the hardest decision of his military career. "All ships, stand down. Prepare for escort to Council space. As human vessels surrounded the disabled Vrex fleet, Vexnall realized that everything the Council thought it knew about military power was wrong. The humans hadn't just won a battle. They had redefined what warfare meant. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been running for 6 hours. Representatives from across the galaxy filled the Great Chamber, their various forms of communication creating a chaos of sound, light, and electromagnetic pulses. High Administrator Thaisara had never seen the Council in such disorder. The Vrex fleet was completely neutralized, Fleet Admiral Korthun reported, his mechanical voice echoing through the chamber. 300 ships disabled in under 2 hours. No casualties among the Vrex crews, but total tactical defeat. Elder Grixton's stone body rumbled with disbelief. The Vrex have conquered rebellious worlds for millennia. How is such a defeat possible? The humans appear to have technology that surpasses anything in our databases, Science Director Quindal explained. They manipulated gravity fields on a scale we didn't think possible. They turned their entire solar system into a coordinated defensive network. Council member Hive Mind. Theta 7 spoke through its collective consciousness. We require more information about human capabilities. This defeat changes everything. Thaisara activated the main display. I'm authorizing Operation Deep Current. Intelligence Director Zelmar will explain. A figure materialized in the center of the chamber. Zelmar's species existed primarily as energy, taking physical form only when necessary. She had run covert operations across the galaxy for over 8 centuries. We've managed to infiltrate human information networks, Zelmar announced. What we discovered is deeply concerning. The display showed streams of data flowing between Earth and points throughout human space. The volume of information was staggering, far more complex than any newly spacefaring civilization should possess. The humans have been monitoring galactic communications for approximately 40 Earth years, Zelmar continued, long before they achieved faster-than-light travel. Their entire planet is covered with listening posts disguised as astronomical research facilities. Murmurs of shock rippled through the assembly. Species typically discovered galactic civilization only after developing FTL capability. The idea that humans had been watching for decades was unprecedented. Show them File 7, Thaisara ordered. The display changed to show detailed profiles of Council species, psychological assessments, military capabilities, economic structures, and social hierarchies. The information was more complete than some species had about themselves. This is a psychological profile of the Vrex hegemony, Zelmar explained. The humans identified their aggressive tendencies, predicted their tactical approaches, and developed specific countermeasures. They have similar files for every major Council species. Representative Meklos from the Trade Guild stood up on his 6 legs. Are you saying they've been studying us like laboratory specimens? Exactly, Zelmar confirmed. But it gets worse. Show them File 12. New data appeared. Military assessments of Council fleets, detailed analyses of weapon systems, and tactical evaluations of defensive strategies. The humans knew the location of every Council military installation and the specifications of every ship class. They've been preparing for contact with us for 4 decades, Zelmar said. Not as potential allies, but as potential threats. The chamber erupted in angry discussion. Representatives demanded explanations for how such extensive surveillance had gone undetected. Others called for immediate military action against Earth. Thaisara raised her primary arms for silence. There's more. Show them the contingency files. The most disturbing information yet appeared on the display. The humans had developed detailed plans for dealing with every major Council species, economic disruption strategies, military neutralization protocols, even plans for psychological warfare against species they had never officially met. This file contains their assessment of the Council's stability, Zelmar explained. They've identified weak points in our political structure, economic vulnerabilities, and potential points of collapse. They've been treating galactic civilization as a system to be understood and potentially dismantled. Elder Grixton's ancient voice carried across the chamber. They see us as enemies. Worse, Thaisara replied. They see us as predictable enemies. Everything we've done has followed patterns they anticipated. Our diplomatic approach, trade offers, military intervention. They planned for all of it. Council member Velarus of the Spiritual Collective spoke for the first time. What of their technology? How did a young species develop such capabilities? Zelmar manipulated the display again. They've been reverse engineering our technology from intercepted communications, but they've also made innovations we never considered. They don't see technology the way we do. Explain, demanded Science Director Quindal. Most species develop technology to solve specific problems. Faster ships for travel, better weapons for war, more efficient production for economics. Humans develop technology to control fundamental forces. They're not just using gravity manipulation for their ships. They're learning to control gravity itself. The implications sank in across the chamber. A species that could manipulate basic physical forces wasn't just technologically advanced. They were potentially beyond anything the Council could match. There's something else, Zelmar continued. We found references to Project Starfall in their classified files. What is Project Starfall? Thaisara asked, though she dreaded the answer. We don't know. The files are encrypted beyond our ability to break. But references suggest it's a large-scale operation that has been in development for over 20 years. The chamber fell silent. Representatives processed the horrifying reality. Humanity wasn't a young species stumbling into galactic civilization. They were a predator species that had been studying their prey for decades before revealing themselves. Representative Kormal of the Outer Colonies raised a tentacle. What do they want? If they've been watching us for so long, they must have goals. That's the most disturbing part, Zelmar replied. Their files suggest they don't want anything from us. They're simply ensuring that galactic civilization doesn't interfere with their own development. We're not targets for conquest. We're obstacles to be managed. The truth settled over the Council like a cold shadow. For 50,000 years, they had been the dominant force in the galaxy. They had shaped the development of thousands of species, maintained peace, and controlled the flow of knowledge and technology. Now they had encountered a species that saw the entire galactic order as optional. Worse, humans had the capability to ignore Council authority and the strategic planning to dismantle Council power if necessary. What are our options? Thaisara asked the Assembly. The chamber remained silent. For the first time in galactic history, the Council had no answer to a species they couldn't control, couldn't intimidate, and couldn't predict. They had discovered something that challenged their most basic assumption about the universe, that advanced civilizations needed centralized authority to maintain order. The humans were proving that independence was not just possible, but superior. High Administrator Thaisara stood alone in her private office, staring at the communication device that had been silent for 3 days. The entire Council waited for humanity's next move. Since the Vrex defeat, no human ship had been seen outside their solar system, no trade missions, no diplomatic contacts, nothing. The silence was more terrifying than any threat. A soft chime indicated an incoming transmission. Thaisara activated the receiver, expecting another report from a panicked Council member. Instead, the familiar calm voice of the humans filled the room. High Administrator Thaisara, this is Director Sarah Chen of the Human Independence Coalition. We request permission to address the full Galactic Council. Thaisara's 8 legs trembled. This was the first time humans had initiated contact. Permission granted. When would you like to schedule the meeting? Now, if convenient. We're already in position outside the council station. Thisara looked at her displays. No ships appeared on any scanner. I don't see any human vessels. Check grid reference 77 Alpha. We're the asteroid. The blood drained from Thisara's face as sensors focused on what appeared to be a large chunk of space rock. As she watched, the asteroid's surface shifted and changed, revealing a massive ship that had been perfectly camouflaged. It was larger than anything in the council fleet and had been hiding in plain sight. We'll meet in the main chamber, Thisara managed to say. Within an hour, representatives from across the galaxy had gathered. The great chamber buzzed with nervous energy as beings tried to understand what humanity wanted. Some expected ultimatums, others feared demands for tribute. A few hoped for negotiations. The human delegation arrived in a simple shuttle that docked normally at the station. No weapons, no guards, no signs of aggression. 3 humans walked into the chamber wearing plain clothing and carrying only data pads. Director Chen stepped forward to address the assembly. She was a middle-aged woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to see everything in the chamber. Members of the Galactic Council, she began, we come here today to clarify our position and establish terms for coexistence. Elder Grixton's stone body shifted. What terms do you demand? Chen smiled. We demand nothing. We're here to inform you of decisions we've already made. She activated a holographic display that showed a map of the galaxy. Human space appeared as a small red zone around Earth and nearby systems. The rest of the galaxy remained marked in council colors. Effective immediately, the regions marked in red are under human authority. Council ships may request permission to enter these areas for peaceful purposes. Permission will be granted or denied based on our assessment of the requesting party's intentions. Outrage erupted across the chamber. Representatives shouted protests in dozens of languages. How could a single species claim authority over any galactic territory? Chen waited for the noise to subside. We understand this is different from how galactic territory has been managed in the past. However, we prefer clear boundaries to avoid future misunderstandings. Fleet Admiral Korth-Un's mechanical voice cut through the chaos. You cannot simply declare independence from galactic law. The Council maintains order through shared authority. Admiral, we were never subject to galactic law, Chen replied calmly. We never agreed to Council authority. You assumed we would accept it because every other species has done so. We chose differently. Thisara stood on her platform. What about the trade disruptions? Your merchants have been operating throughout Council space without authorization. Our merchants will continue to operate where they are welcome, Chen said. We don't require authorization to conduct peaceful trade. However, we will respect the wishes of any species that prefers not to deal with us. The display changed to show trade route data. Human merchants had already established relationships with over 300 worlds. Many of these were offering better terms than Council trade networks. Representative Velarus spoke softly. What do you truly want from us? Chen's expression became serious. To be left alone to develop as we choose. We don't want to conquer anyone. We don't want to rule anyone. We simply want the right to make our own decisions without interference. And if we refuse to recognize your independence, demanded Council member Hive Mind Theta 7, then you'll be making the same mistake the Vrex made, Chen replied. We hoped our response to their fleet made our capabilities clear. She changed the display again. Images appeared showing human installations throughout the galaxy, mining operations on distant asteroids, research stations in empty space, observation posts watching major Council worlds. We've been preparing for this conversation for 40 years, Chen explained. We know your military capabilities, your economic weaknesses, and your political structure. We don't want to use this information against you, but we will defend ourselves if necessary. The chamber fell silent as representatives realized the scope of human preparation. However, Chen continued, we prefer cooperation to conflict. We're offering an alternative to the current galactic order. What alternative? Thaisara asked. True independence for species that want it. No more mandatory council membership. No more imposed regulations. No more forced unity. Species can choose their own level of participation in galactic affairs. The implications rippled through the assembly. If species could choose independence, how many would leave the council? How many would prefer direct relationships with humans rather than council oversight? Chen gestured to her companions, who began distributing data pads to council representatives. These contain our formal policies for interaction with galactic civilization. We're not asking you to approve them. We're informing you of them. She faced the assembly one final time. For 50,000 years, the council has maintained order by convincing species they had no choice but to accept central authority. We're proving that choice exists. Some species will prefer council membership. Others will choose independence. A few might develop their own alternatives. Chen's voice remained calm, but her words carried the weight of galactic change. The age of mandatory unity is ending. The age of chosen cooperation is beginning. The human delegation left the chamber as quietly as they had arrived. Their ship departed the station and vanished into space, leaving the council to face a new reality. Within weeks, 7 council members formally requested reviews of their membership terms. The Altarian Commerce Guild announced it was exploring trade relationships with human space. 3 Outer Rim colonies declared independence and asked for human recognition. Ambassador Zethkar, still stationed near Earth, watched human ships travel freely through space that had once been exclusively council territory. Species throughout the galaxy were learning they had options they never knew existed. The Council's greatest fear hadn't been human aggression or technology. It had been the realization that galactic civilization didn't require central control to function. Humans had never rejected diplomacy. They had simply refused to accept the only terms ever offered, complete submission to council authority. Now other species were learning to refuse as well.